Hi, this is Starkie Sowers, Director of Education for Clark's Nutrition and Natural Foods Market. Welcome again to another Plus Program training series. And in this series, we're going to be talking about homeopathic medicines or homeopathic remedies or homeopathy, so to speak, part 2. All right, so kind of recap a little bit from part 1. Number 1, we can't talk about homeopathy without talking about the founder, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. Dr. Samuel Hahnemann worked his way through medical college as a medical transcriber where he actually transcribed books. Remember, that was the day before the printing press as well as before the computer, so to speak. So everyone in medical school had to have somebody write their medical books for them. And he, of course, spoke 8 languages, and he developed and kind of stumbled onto the theory of using cinchona bark to help with malaria symptoms. And what he found was when you took a large amount of a substance and gave it to an individual, such in this situation, cinchona bark actually produced like malaria symptoms. And then when given the small amount, it actually reduced the symptoms significantly and returned that person back to normal. So he developed the theory of like cures like, where large amounts of a substance actually produces a disease state or different types of symptoms, and a small amount, a homeopathic diluted amount, actually reduced or eliminated those particular symptoms. So that kind of gives you the idea of the like cures like and his law of similars that he actually produced. All right, the other thing that he did is he produced the potency process, where you actually take the particular original mother tincture, so to speak, and dilute it down through a series of dilutions. So if you took the mother tincture, the original herb tincture mixture, and put it into a bottle at 1/10 the amount, which would be a 1x, and you would use 9 parts of the water and put it through a potentization process of pounding and shaking, it actually produced a 1x substance. So then if you did it again, took 1/10 of that amount to put it into another smaller glass, so to speak, or another jar, in this particular case, probably a bottle, and then filled it up with 1/10 of the original 1x, and then 9/10 of a diluent, you'd have a 2x. And then, of course, if you did again, you would have a 3x and so forth and so on. Typical potencies that you're going to find in a store are usually going to be like a 6x or a 30C. So there's going to be 6 dilutions or 30 dilutions. You'll also see 100s and you'll see 200s as well. And a lot of times you'll see a 6x or a 6C be used interchangeably. The 6x, of course, is 1/10 dilution. The 6C is 1/100th. So they're actually considered more potent. Remember also that the more potent means that it's been diluted more, and you actually don't have to use it as much or as frequent. So let's look at a couple other things as well too. Let's look at the types of remedies that you can buy in a store. First of all, when we look at this, you can see that we can buy what we call a single dose or a single remedy. And so it's going to be like allium sepia. We use the illustration of allium sepia in the first one, where allium sepia, which of course is red onion, actually reduces the symptoms, so to speak, of allergies. So you can buy it by itself, or you can actually get a couple different remedies and use them together. By the way, there's no limit to how many remedies you can use together as a single remedy. The other thing that became probably more popular for most people was using what is known as a multi-remedy. So in this particular situation, we see a couple different things by King Bio, which are multi-remedies. And what does that mean? Well, that means this. Let's say you have allergy symptoms. You've got like maybe a runny nose, you've got your eyes are watery, and then you've got like maybe stuffy ears. Well, you tried allium sepia and it seems to help with the runny nose, but it doesn't really work on the eyes. Well, they might add to it like euphrasia. They also might add histaminium, which of course histaminium is histamine, which is what causes inflammation. Remember, homeopathically, diluted amount reduces the symptoms of histamine. You also might add 3 or 4. So it's kind of, in my opinion, I call it like a shotgun remedy. So it kind of attacks all the symptoms together and it kind of nails it down. All right. So that way you're not having to try the first or the second remedy, making sure that each one of them is going to work. It's like you can just get a multi-remedy and it works much more effective. So that's kind of populated the American public, so to speak. It's a little simpler, a little easier to get. People that buy single remedies typically know what they want it for, and they find that it works. All right, so let's talk about some of the all-star cast, so to speak, of homeopathy. You can't do that without talking about oscillococcinum. Oscillococcinum has been on the market since the late 1980s, and it's been extremely effective. In fact, it's the #1 selling alternative flu remedy. And so when we look at oscillococcinum, it's a combination of duck liver and duck heart. And what we do know about the duck is it carries all of the strains of the flu virus. It's an avian virus situation, a bird virus. And so what we know when you take the diluted substances of these homeopathic preparation, it reduces the symptoms of the flu. That doesn't mean it eradicates the disease and doesn't mean that it stops the replication of the virus. It means that it reduces the symptoms of the flu. All right. So it's probably been one of the number one things that has kind of resurged homeopathic remedies and medicines out into the American public. Actually, for years, the remedies had slowly but surely kind of started to dissipate in their popularity. In the late 1970s, it got resurged by the American hippies, so to speak. And then when oscillococcinum hit the market, it just really exploded the idea of maybe looking at homeopathic again. So next on the list that I like, and that's probably one of the number one remedies that you can really go after, is arnica. When you look at arnica montana, and when it comes to athletic injuries, some recent research actually shows that it reduces leukotrienes, and leukotrienes is what causes inflammation. So we know that arnica is extremely effective in bumps, bruises, athletic injuries, especially the first signs, so to speak, and helps to improve the symptoms of soreness, muscular soreness. I love this remedy. I use it on a regular basis. Stuff is amazing. All right, next on the list is calendula. So when we look at calendula, calendula is the topical that the internal arnica is. And calendula is super effective for burns and scrapes, and as well as for like cracked hands and fingers. Mine have a tendency to crack in the wintertime. Use the calendula ointment or use the creams, and it just does a phenomenal job on healing up the skin. All right. So next on the list is sleep aid. We have a lot of people, when we look at it, have a tough time sleeping. So this particular product has biochemical phosphates, and it has a Vena sativa as well as some passiflora. It's really great for calming and helping one stay in a deep sleep. And finally, when we look at the last remedies on the market, are the teething remedies and the Highland homeopathic remedies for children. These remedies have been on the market literally since like 1905. And one thing that we talked about is the placebo effect. Well, one thing we know about kids is this, is you can't, especially infants, they don't have a placebo effect. You could sit there and talk to them and they're not going to know. So when you give them these remedies and their symptoms disappear, you know that there's not a placebo effect because they're little infants. They don't communicate at the adult level. So the placebo effect isn't in reality. So that's kind of a nice way to close, because when we look at infants and children's, we know that these remedies work so effectively, and they're not only effective at helping relieve the symptoms, but kind of getting the body back in balance. So that kind of wraps up our whole section on homeopathy. And I appreciate you guys watching. This is Starkie Sowers, Director of Education for Clarkson Nutrition and Natural Foods Market, reminding you to live better. We can help.